Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our second sitting of the PPA. I hope everyone enjoyed the evening yesterday and the meal that we had. Thanks all for arriving on time as well. I'm really pleased to say that this morning we are joined by Lord McFall, who is the Speaker in the House of Lords, and he would like to share some opening remarks with us. So we're very pleased and honoured that you're with us this morning. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Marcia. And I welcome you, dear colleagues, to this second day of discussion and deliberations. And I reflect on how much the Parliamentary Partnership Assembly has achieved since I welcomed its first members here in this very room in 2022. Now, through hard work and determination, it has grown into a firmly established institution, now gathering for its sixth meeting, having evolved through elections in both our parliaments. And I pay tribute to Marcia de Cordova and Sandro Gozzi for their leadership, and to the Bureau and all PPA members for their continued efforts in ensuring the Assembly's effectiveness. I am kept up to date by the House of Lords Vice Chair, Lord Ricketts, and other members on the EU Committee, and I'm encouraged and impressed by what the PPA has managed to deliver so far. We have observers here from the Welsh Senate, the Scottish Parliament, the Northern Ireland Assembly, the Committee of Regions, the European Economic and Social Committee, and the Swiss Parliament. You are all very welcome. The PPA brings democratic perspectives to the immense challenges we face, and those perspectives are the richer for the participation of all our colleagues. Our House, the House of Lords, has considerable expertise in the scrutiny of European affairs. When I want information about the UK's relationship with the European Union, I turn to the work of the House of Lords European Affairs Committee, such as its recently issued report on resetting the UK-EU relationship. That report speaks of the importance of parliamentary scrutiny of the evolving UK-EU agreements. And although my role as Lord Speaker is non-political, I am a strong advocate for the contribution and value that parliamentary oversight and scrutiny adds to the work of government. The soft power element is hugely important, and that was brought home to me very recently when I was a guest of the French Senate and the Polish Parliament on that. This work of the Assembly is a powerful example of that, and parliamentarians bring vital perspectives to the issues of the agenda for this meeting. You heard yesterday about the current state of the relationship between the UK and EU. Our defence and security challenges needs pragmatic cooperation. Creative, cultural exchanges enrich our lives and build understanding, not least with young people. Cooperation on trade, AI and digital issues is essential to our future prosperity against the backdrop of a fast-changing global landscape. These are challenges too important and cross-cutting for any of us to tackle alone. And if I could say that the concept of engagement and understanding is central in today's world. Not just hearing one another, but listening to one another and taking that forward. And this is a fine example, this forum, on that. So I thank you for your commitment to these sessions. I know it is complex and painstaking work. You'll probably not get much gratitude for it, but that's politics, mate. So let's remember that. But once again, it's my privilege to extend a warm welcome to the European Parliament's delegation and all our guests to the Palace of Westminster. I wish you a productive and enjoyable session today. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for not only making your time to be here with us this morning, but also for the kind words that you've shared. And I know that I can express this as a delegation. We would also like to take this opportunity to thank you for the strong support for the work of the PPA throughout your term as the Lord Speaker. Thank you. We all wish you and your family the very best for the future as you prepare to step down as Lord Speaker in the new year. So a huge thank you from us. Chair.
Thank you, Masha, and thank you again to the speaker who made the honor to come with us this morning. We have now under point 7 the report from the breakout groups. You know, the breakout groups are informal groups, informal gathering where we open discuss about issues which we consider of common interest and of specific importance in our bilateral relationship. We had 3 breakout groups yesterday. They focus on the state of play and the potential development of the trade and cooperation agreement, on climate energy, and on trade supply chains and worker rights. This morning we are going to hear from the 3 chairs of the breakout groups about the main conclusions, and we will have a discussion about this. And in the light of the discussion, we will have an informal summary report of the 3 working groups. So I start now with Lord Ricketts. I invite him to tell him about the breakout groups on the review of the Trade and Cooperation Agreement and the 2026 EU-UK Summit. Please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I want to start by thanking the staff who helped me, Jack Sheldon, Killian Burke and Stefano Fella, who did great work in supporting me, and also to say a special word to the observers who came, because I found that their contributions were very useful and valuable in the session. We had a large exam question. Actually, we had a very interesting discussion, I think. I hope all those who attended agreed with that. I can't take everybody's nuances fully into account, but our big message, I think, was that the world is changing very rapidly and that the agreements between the UK and the EU have to keep up with that, and that without renewed effort, the relationship risks falling behind and could be damaged by the US-China confrontation. So we need to keep up the momentum, I think, was our big message. I began with the assumption that the TCA review for 2026 and the next summit were 2 separate events, but we concluded, I think, that they should be seen as complementary. Together, they've got to provide both an ongoing assessment of how the relationship is developing and to keep it under constant re-evaluation, as one member put it, a rolling program of evaluation, and both should be used to the full extent. What then should the TCA review in 2026 do? I think the assumptions are it will be more of a technical review than a fundamental root and branch renegotiation. But several members pointed out that we've not yet maximized its potential. So the review should certainly ensure full implementation of existing agreements. It should map underused areas and set out a roadmap to exploit them fully. For example, in regulatory cooperation, in financial services cooperation, mutual recognition of professional qualifications, and customs cooperation, there is more in the TCA than has been exploited yet. Secondly, the important point was made that a serious review should look at where the gaps are in the TCA. We need a strategy to keep the TCA relevant in a fast-changing world. AI is only mentioned once in a footnote in the whole TCA, we're told, and yet it underpins everything. And the UK and the EU should be aiming to pursue compatible approaches to AI to enhance our competitiveness rather than risk falling behind in the global race. And that strategy of filling gaps should also look at regulatory cooperation, help navigate external pressures like the steel tariffs, which confront us both. Coming then to the 2026 summit, that should partly take account of whatever comes out of the TCA review. It should act as a forcing event to push agreements over the line if they are still taking time. So SPS, ETS, electricity trading, youth experience, Erasmus. We've talked about them all, but it seems to us that they should all be accelerated, if necessary, by the 2026 summit. It should also look at where the relationship needs to evolve. For example, touring artists seems to have fallen between the cracks so far. Broader creative cooperation was strongly emphasised, and people-to-people links. So we should draw there on the TCA review and on the European Parliament's forthcoming resolution on UK-EU relations. And then one sentence, looking to the future, we think there should be regular, continuous, high-level engagement to drive our cooperation forward, and perhaps more frequent summits than once a year, so that that doesn't become a blockage to cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Ricketts. And now I invite Sarah Ball to give us the feedback on the second breakout groups on climate and energy. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, so we had a very lively and engaging discussion which covered a wide range of topics. I think really the key point was that the high cost of energy faced by businesses and consumers underpinned much of our discussion. And the group noted that the EU-UK sort of energy cooperation could help to stabilise those costs. Now, we sort of broke down specific topics really raised into 4 areas. So the first was about electricity trading and CBAM. So the UK participation in the internal electricity market could improve investment opportunities and help to stabilise costs, as was established as a principle under the Common Understanding. And the group also acknowledged that there is a wide range of views about the value of CBAM, but agreed that it is important that the UK is part of CBAM necessarily rather than subject to it. The second area we focused on was sort of around community impact, both onshore and offshore forms of energy. So again, the group agreed that there are real concerns in rural and coastal communities around the impact of new onshore and offshore energy. Communities often do not feel the benefit of infrastructure, whether that's in reduced bills or in energy supply. So we do need to work much harder to communicate the benefits of transition and to be honest about the short and long-term costs involved. There was also strong concerns about the impact of offshore wind farms on fisheries, and we really noted it is important to plan the marine environment collaboratively, working with the fishing industry. The third area was on technological cooperation. The group suggested that increased EU-UK cooperation on nuclear energy, such as Euratom and Fusion for Energy, would be important. Then we also looked at other points around energy storage, such as via green hydrogen, and that could be an area for further cooperation in the future. And also that perhaps the EU and the UK could explore a joint offshore energy supergrid and innovation zone. And finally, the final area was just EU-UK energy cooperation. We said that is actually very important for geopolitical reasons, and actually we really need to understand the wider context in which we are operating. That includes the need for security of our energy infrastructure particularly, and we've seen this in more recent months and years. And we also noted too that the change in motivation underpinning energy policy has been quite stark, moving, we've noticed, more from being driven by environmental concerns to competitiveness and security concerns. And it's interesting to see how we'll approach that in the months and years to come. But yes, very good group, and thank you also to the staff for helping us with this all.
Thank you, Sarah. And now, last but not least, Clara Dobrev to share with us the feedback on the trade, supply chains, and worker rights breakout groups. Please, Clara, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much. We had a very tense and very interesting discussion yesterday about the trade, supply chains, and mainly about worker rights. It was an interesting discussion because there were Social Democrats from the European Parliament and Labour and Lib Dem from the UK Parliament, and you can't imagine how surprisingly easy it is to come to agreement if you don't have political opponents in the room. So I think our breakup group was one of the most effective ones. And so what I'm telling you, we were very, very effective and productive in that way. So these are the moments when you do understand the dictators. It's easier to work without any political opponents. But I wouldn't suggest, especially about workers' rights, to do it in the future like that. So the first point was about how to improve the UK-EU trade agreement, as we do understand that should be a tariff-free trade, but that many post-Brexit non-tariff barriers still exist, and we have to work quite strong in order to eliminate them. But the most important part is it's not simply just to boost economic growth. So if it's a figure in an Excel sheet about the GDP growth, it's not helpful. We need also to put down these barriers in order to bring down prices, living costs, and to improve the everyday life of people. So this is definitely one of our most important goals. The group was talking quite a lot about social and environmental protection, so about protection of labor and social rights, workers' rights, how to tackle climate change. And here, both sides, the UK and the European sides, we raised our concerns that this agenda of competitiveness and simplification in UK and in EU is a driver of possible reduction to workers' rights, and this can how to strike the right balance between social protection and business interests. And we are afraid that business interests, simplification, competitiveness, these are the buzzwords in order to come back in social rights, come back in environmental goals, come back in measures to tackle and fight climate change, and we should be aware of these issues. We had agreed, actually broadly agreed, to what extent the protection of workers and social rights are improving people's life, and these are reducing cost of living, and we definitely have to deal with it, especially when we see how far right is increasing in all of our countries. And in this debate, again, in UK and EU, we should be wary of understanding that this anti-immigration political debate which is going on is sometimes leading to false arguments. Immigration is not the mother of all problems, how the far right wants to show it. We have problems in economic growth, we have problems in housing, in salaries, in pensions, in healthcare, in education, and we have to have the answers to those basic questions, and we should not let us lead by false problems or false communicating problems. If the measure is not improving voters' lives, then it's not going to be a good measure. And we were talking about, of course, about the sustainability of our supply chains, and including all the scrutiny we have to do all through the supply chains to see forced labor or even anti-climate actions to be implemented in the scrutiny and the overseeing of the supply channels. It was noted that the UK, where reform of the Modern Slavery Act is being considered, and it's the implementation of the EU CSDD closely to see its impacts on European supply chains as well. And the group also discussed the fact that the CSDD in Europe was potentially being amended in ways that could make it less effective, so we have to take care of it. And our suggestion is that there are a lot of questions how the UK and EU might work together most effectively on issues like supply chain sustainability, protection of workers' rights, and delivering economic growth for the benefit of all citizens. So we were suggesting, for example, that a regular UK-EU social dialogue summit could take place in order to address these issues more regularly and together. So these were the outcomes of our group. Thank you.
Thank you, Clara, and thanks to all the three chairs of these breakout groups and to you colleagues for your excellent work. Congratulations. The point is over, and now I hand the chair to my colleague Marcia. Please.
Thank you, Sandra, and can I also add my thanks to the three vice chairs for chairing those breakout sessions and for the valuable feedback that you have provided us with this morning. So we are now moving on to our first exchange of views for this morning on the subject of creative and cultural exchange. We have two fantastic speakers. We have the Minister Ian Murray, who is the Minister for Creative Industries, Media and Arts at the Department for Culture, Media and Sport. And we also have Mr. Richard Shostak, Director of Western European Partners, European Commission. So we'll firstly hear from both of the speakers, and then I will open it out to the floor for everyone to make their contributions. So I will firstly go to Mr. Richard Shostak for him to make his contributions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you for the invitation. Honourable Chair Gozzi, Honourable Chair de Cordova. So thank you very much for inviting me here to exchange views on creative and cultural exchanges. I think we'll be very quick to agree that culture and exchanges of this kind should be at the heart of the renewed agenda, because they remind the EU and the UK of how much we have in common, because they are intrinsic to who we are. So allow me to present, I think, 4 elements which could form the core of a relationship between the EU and the UK in this area. The first element in our view, and it was agreed to in the common understanding that was approved at the summit, is that we should work towards a youth experience scheme to facilitate the movement of young people from one side of the channel to the other. The aim from our perspective is to make it easier for young people to move, to study, to train, to learn on the other side of the channel. And we think this would create great opportunities to strengthen cultural exchange. We believe such a scheme would benefit those who decide to travel, but also that it would generate growth on both sides. Given the shared aim of such a scheme, according to the agreed common understanding, is, I quote, to facilitate the participation of youth in studies, an important part of this conversation, we think, will necessarily have to be about tuition fees. The number of EU university students in the UK has simply fallen off a cliff, from 27% of all international students in 2017 to 5% in this academic year. Higher tuition fees in the UK effectively price out the European middle class and are responsible for this drop. We think that this is bad for students, bad for universities, but also bad for the local communities in which universities play a very important role. So we know that the reason for the difficulties around this and the reason for the overseas fees are the financial difficulties of universities. We're aware of this, we understand this. But we think that more EU students in the UK and vice versa has the potential to increase student numbers in universities. We think that would have a positive impact on enrollment, possibly on the viability of certain courses which are under pressure. We think it would bring lost European diversity to campuses. We think it would shield universities from economic shocks in parts of the world on which they have become dependent. And we also think that it would shield universities from political risks to which they are exposed. In other words, we're confident that there is a formula that could be beneficial for both sides to address this issue, and we would be really eager to begin a discussion between the EU and the UK on this point. The second building block, in our view, is the commitment that we share towards the association of the UK to the Erasmus Plus programme. This is again about building bridges between the future of our societies. The negotiations are ongoing, notably on the question of the financial terms of the UK's association. I think everybody on the EU side hopes that this will be a successful discussion. It would be great, there would be great benefits for everyone, from schools to adult education, from staff to vocational training. Opportunities for all elements of our societies, a priority in London as well as EU capitals. The third element, the third building block, is that in the common understanding we recognise the value of cultural and artistic exchanges including the activities of touring artists. Lord Ricketts referred to this a moment ago. We understand the UK's wish for its artists and their teams to travel freely across the continent, performing for audiences in the EU. After all, the free movement of people and services is at the very heart of the EU project. The challenges that the situation UK touring artists face is a result of some of the important decisions that were made by the UK since the UK left the EU, and which are very difficult to unpick for a particular sector. It's about the movement of people, about work permits, about road haulage, about customs rules. So this is not to say that the UK isn't sensitive to the problem, and we are looking for ways to improve the situation, and I can give you a couple of examples. First of all, we're engaging with member states on visa and work permit issues, and we can tell you that most member states no longer require visas or work permits for touring artists. Most recently, Croatia lifted such requirements. We're also looking at ways to simplify customs procedures, for example, by digitalizing a lot of processes. This has been discussed in the relevant forum of the Trade and Cooperation Agreement in charge. I won't pretend that this will remove customs processes, but it will make them a lot simpler, a lot easier. In the run-up to the summit, and it continues to be the case now, we've made clear that we're open to hearing ideas on this issue, and we're open to continuing an exchange with the UK on this matter. It is, however, more challenging than it seems at the surface. The fourth element I'd like to refer to, and the last one, Mr. Chair, is that the main EU programme to facilitate cultural and creative exchange in the EU, the main programme which supports the cultural and audiovisual sectors in the EU, is Creative Europe. The EU has increased the size of its commitment to culture, and so the size and the scope of the programme over the past years. The programme is open to cultural and creative organisations from countries outside the EU, and I know the Commissioner in charge, Commissioner Mikalev, has been clear about his openness to the EU. Perhaps this is another avenue we could explore to reinforce cultural and creative exchanges between the EU and the UK. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those comments. Thanks for your appreciation. You can do that. Right. The Minister's running slightly late, so I'm going to say a few words and also hand over to Sandra as well, and then when the Minister arrives, then he can obviously make his contributions and then we'll open it out. But I want to just start by saying that I am really pleased that we are discussing this important issue. I come at this issue from first principles. I see creative and cultural exchange as a vital and living part of our relationship between people. And as the singer Madonna once said, music makes the people come together. You notice I didn't try and sing that myself. But my feeling is, who are we to keep them apart? At a time when the online echo chambers are dividing our societies, we really should be doing everything that we can to bring people together through what I believe is our diverse and our rich culture. So I appreciated that the summit in May recognised the value of travel and cultural artistic exchanges, including activities of touring artists, which I hopefully not naively, want to interpret as a signal that that strategic partnership will come back to this. And I was delighted yesterday, our recommendation, the Minister is now here, I'll carry on, recommendation urged the Commission and the Government to find a comprehensive solution to challenges faced by touring artists. It's vital that we improve that landscape for them. Not only does it boost the cultural economy, but also it fosters good cultural exchanges, the creative economy, and it also reduces crippling costs as well as those administrative burdens. Now, I know that the obstacles that can be faced, as we are all parliamentarians, we can speak for the people we represent, and they want us to move on this quickly so that we can find solutions to them. So I hope that both our speakers, they are going to take note of what is said during this exchange, because I feel as though we have to make progress on this issue. I know that it's been raised previously at sessions like this, but now I feel that we are in a better position to actually see some movement to improve the space when it comes to creative and cultural exchanges. Thank you.
Maybe we give the floor to the Minister before?
No.
No, it's okay? Okay, no, so I join Marcia in a few introductory remarks. She recalled Madonna. I would say that going back to the Beatles, all we need is culture. And I strongly believe that the golden thread of our commitment is around Europeanness. And I think that when we talk about youth mobility, culture, academic exchanges, apprenticeship exchanges, vocational training programs from the two sides of the channels, we are talking about investing on our European identity and investing on our future. This is why it is so important. And this is why I think that we have to move ahead together on the issue of youth opportunities, Erasmus+, and the issue of touring artists. And I'm going to be very frank with you. I do not understand how the issue of youth mobility can be mixed up with migration and irregular migration. I think it is simply wrong. Certainly we have to fight against irregular migration, but we cannot renounce to provide opportunity to our youth from UK because they are trapped in a debate on irregular migration. So I think that we should make it clear this. So in my opinion, my personal opinion is that the larger is the youth opportunity program, the better. The better for our pupils, the better for our students, the better for our youths, the better for our apprenticeships. Then there is also another issue which is linked to culture, and certainly, as a former DJ, very keen of Britpop music, I cannot help to say that I got a vested interest in tackling the issue of touring artists because I don't want to renounce to the beautiful concert of the British band around Europe. But that is certainly something on which we have to insist. It is, as it was clearly said by the European Commission, I want to make it clear to our British colleagues, it is more complicated because it is a patchwork of different measures. Because, it's not, we don't have a silver bullet to solve the issue of touring artists after Brexit. We have to tackle visa issues, labor market issues, transport rules, merchandising, and so on and so forth. But we have to do it because it is also in our interest. Mm-hmm. Because a concert means more money for the local community, for the local business, more money for the hotels, more money for the restaurant, more money for the transport. So I think that this is also a way we have to put it to the Commission and to our member state to move swiftly ahead on this. So this is how I see things. I think that we were right. My last word, we were very right, Marcia, in our joint recommendation of March, in indicating that this chapter is of the utmost importance. Now it is in a formal commitment for the two executive, and we must make it happen. The sooner, the better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandro. I'm really grateful to have the Minister who will be joining us this morning. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Minister, for you to make your contributions. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Chair and Secretary General, and apologies for being slightly late. We were in a meeting with the Arts Council England, which deals with all of the arts issues across the country, and we're doing a big report on how that should be reformed, and this is obviously a key part of our strategy as a government. And can I just thank everyone for their being here and being part of this PPA. It's a really, really important body, and government really values the contribution that you all make, whether from the United Kingdom or across our partners in the European Union, because we know that the creative and cultural exchange, which is what I'm responsible for, between the UK and our European partners is hugely critical for both the European Union and the United Kingdom. And when our leaders respectively came together in London in May this year for the first UK-EU summit, we reaffirmed what those shared values are and the commitment to that deeper cooperation. And Nick Thomas-Symonds, the Paymaster General and Minister responsible for the relationship, laid that out at dinner last night with his opening remarks. And we agreed that it was in our mutual interest to deepen our people-to-people ties as well as our economic ties, including by continuing efforts to support the crucial cultural exchange, enabling European artistry and of creativity to transcend our borders. And that's what our people want here in the United Kingdom and across Europe, and that's what we are determined to deliver. Now, as you can tell from my accent, I'm from Scotland, so I'm hoping the creativity and ingenuity of our Scottish strikers tonight and Hampden in the World Cup qualifier transcends Danish strikers. So if there's any Danes in the room, I do apologise, but I'm very parochial this evening in terms of what needs to happen in the artistry of football. But as a Minister for Creative Industries, Media and the Arts, these are the commitments that I take seriously and want to progress with all of you and the partition of all of you and your respective countries in this room. And it's why I was very thrilled to join my EU counterparts at the informal meeting of the Cultural and Media Ministers meeting in Copenhagen earlier this month, hosted by the Danish Presidency of the European Council. And it was a privilege to be able to discuss how best to safeguard our rich and diverse cultural heritage, tackle the challenges faced by the media sector across Europe, and also how we can work together to ensure that we maintain, secure and develop the heritage of Ukraine and our colleagues and friends in Ukraine. I'm pleased to know that this commitment to supporting creative and cultural exchange is one of your key priorities as well, and I wholeheartedly agree with your statement after the last meeting in March that people-to-people contact are the core of this UK-EU relationship, and we know that to be the case. I was delighted to note that many of the European Commission's priorities in the newly launched Cultural Compass mirror our very own in this country, including championing international cultural relations and partnerships, as we're doing here today. And I look forward to discussing those with you further later. We're all friends in this room, and we want to continue to work and develop those relationships because we know the benefits of UK-EU creative and cultural exchange for both our economies cannot be understated. And the European Union is the UK's most significant trading partner, and we are similarly one of your most significant trading partners. Our cultural and creative sectors are key drivers of this relationship and of our future growth. For example, we've heard about the Beatles this morning, but actually in Germany and the Netherlands are among the biggest markets for UK books and authors, where authors like Richard Osman have become household names in those countries. The UK also has Europe's largest video games workforce. Games our developers create or contribute to are enjoyed by European audiences Europe-wide, including Grand Theft Auto. And I believe Grand Theft Auto 6, which is coming out next November, will be the single biggest release of any game and potentially any visual contribution and creation in history. Series like Candy Crush and Football Manager that I'm sure many of you will be playing during these long meetings to keep you amused. The laughter in the room is probably from the people who are already on level 47. But our citizens greatly enjoy experience all Europe has to offer, and that's why I use those particular examples, because it's right across the cultural sectors and right across everything that we do in our daily lives, bolstering your visitor economies as they do so here in the United Kingdom. UK residents make 94.6 million trips overseas last year. And it's no surprise that Spain, France and Italy topped that list of places to visit. In fact, I visited 2 of those 3 myself in the last year. So stronger ties between the EU and the UK will bolster the growth of these sectors even further, driving that greater economic prosperity for all of our citizens. But I also want to highlight the inextricable role that the cultural and creative industries play in strengthening our shared European identity. And this is something that I care passionately about, and it's more prevalent today than ever. So at a time of global geopolitical uncertainty and division, it's vital now more than ever that we're united in celebrating the diverse culture and creative offerings of our great European continent. We have a strong foundation to build on, sustained by centuries of collaboration and exchange which continues until this very day. And for instance, when the British Council partnered with Poland's Adam Mickiewicz Institute and the Polish Cultural Institute to launch the UK-Poland Season of Culture in March, which is a diverse programme of over 100 multi-art form events in 40 cities in both countries, or when the Bayeux Tapestry returns to the United Kingdom in 2026, something we're incredibly proud of with our partners in France for the first time in nearly 1,000 years. Let's hope that cultural exchanges don't take that long to develop in future, but a physical embodiment of the UK and France's determination to support cultural exchange in each other's economies. The UK and the EU are also aligned in a recognition of the role that cultural and creative exchange can play in building resilience in fragile environments. This is why the UK has announced a further £200,000 in emergency funding to help protect Ukraine's cultural heritage, and I intend to join the Cultural Resilience Alliance alongside European partners such as Italy and Spain to share expertise and coordination
to preserve Ukrainian culture both during Russia's full-scale invasion and in the years ahead as the country rebuilds. And this is something that the informal EU cultural ministers meeting in Copenhagen last week was very proud to endorse. I must also highlight our cultural and artistic exchanges, including the activities of touring artists, which we've heard about already, something that's at the top of our agenda, which our leaders recognise at the UK-EU summit and was part of the agreement, including in the common understanding document that came from that. And my role as Minister and as the UK Government is to make sure that we can deliver everything that's in that summit and in that common understanding document for the benefit of both the EU and indeed the UK, because if we can do that, we can deepen and strengthen that relationship at the annual summits that are part of that concordat. A dynamic cultural landscape relies on artists and creative professionals having the freedom to perform, collaborate and promote themselves around the world. And the UK's world-leading performers have been integral to Europe's vibrant cultural scene and vice versa. Just to look at Dua Lipa's sold-out concerts at Amsterdam's Ziggo Dome. Was anybody there? No? Or Charlie XCX's headline performances at Primavera Sound in Barcelona this year. I have no idea who Charlie XCX is. Do we know who that is? Does anybody know? You do know who that is. Anybody under the age of 30 knows who that is. However, our artists are facing barriers to taking part in this vital form of cultural exchange, ranging from limiting and complex mobility arrangements to difficulties moving equipment and merchandise across borders. And these barriers mean venues, festivals, creative businesses and crucially audiences across Europe lose access to a diverse pool of talent and the local economic benefit they bring, from increased tourism to bolstering hospitality revenue to just being a key part of Europe's cultural ecosystem. I note that Commissioner Šefčovič acknowledged these challenges at the last EU-UK PPA meeting in March, noting that the European Commission was looking to alleviate the issues faced by touring artists. And members of the PPA, of course, also stressed the need to facilitate travel for touring artists to maximise the extent to which they can perform in Europe. So I'm pleased that the newly published Cultural Compass recognises these barriers to artist mobility, and I hope I can rely on your continued support as we want to tackle them and implement the summit's commitment to our mutual benefit. In the same vein, the UK is proud to contributor to and collaborator within the European audiovisual landscape, something that's right at the top of the agenda at the moment and was discussed at the informal EU Cultural Ministers meeting in Copenhagen 2 weeks ago. We continue to play an active role in supporting this vibrant ecosystem, as well as growing number of co-productions across Europe in both the EU and non-EU countries. Recent collaborations include films such as Hard Truths, a UK-Spain co-production, and the football drama Sapin, a UK-Irish collaboration directed by Lisa Banos-Dessy and Glenn Leyburn. On that note, I'm sure you will all agree that nothing unites Europe more than our love of sport that I've already mentioned. It might not unite all of Europe tonight, but we will continue our teamwork both on and off the field. The UEFA Euro 2028 is a testament to that, which we will be co-hosting with our Irish neighbours, and we're very much looking forward to welcoming teams and fans from across Europe to our islands as we look to make the best Euros ever. One which unlocks far-reaching social and economic benefits by bringing communities together, creating jobs, driving growth, encouraging visitors to the UK and Ireland by showcasing the best we have to offer, and of course, Scotland qualifying. And finally, the UK recognises that closer cooperation on education, skills, youth and sport will bring joint benefits to our young people, enabling vital pathways for them to experience different cultures and strengthen the bonds between all of our nations. According to the British Council Next Generation report of last year, more than 2/3 of young adults believe international expertise and a global outlook are essential to achieving their aspirations, and more than 80% want us to maintain positive relations with countries within the EU to give them those opportunities. All this is why we have agreed to work towards association of Erasmus Plus and the establishment of a balanced youth experience scheme with our friends in the EU. Two big priorities for us that we're determined to make sure we can deliver as quickly as possible, and we can do so with your support and help. We're committed to moving at pace to taking these commitments forward to maximise the benefits of such initiatives for our young people, whether it's experiencing new cultures through semesters abroad, gaining work experience through placements in the creative and cultural sectors, or supporting grassroots sports organisations to acquire new skills through exchanges with European partners. So thank you to my colleagues for giving me this platform to speak and address you this morning on such important subject matter. And I look forward to both our lively discussion, our continued dialogue on how we can support more cultural exchange between the UK and the EU, and how we continue to work together to achieve our joint goals of making sure that the UK and the EU can work together for our young people, for our cultural organisations and for that cultural exchange. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. I think we all agree with that. And we all wish Scotland the very best of luck in qualifying this evening. Right, so we'll open it out to members now to make their contributions. Obviously, they are 2 minutes. The clocks are located around the room, no excuses. So I will start with Baroness Bull.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, speakers. We've heard that cultural exchange brings mutual benefits to the individual, the economy, innovation, and to international understanding. And for all these reasons, post-Brexit and in this unstable geopolitical environment, it is absolutely crucial. Creative Europe, as we've heard, would be an immediate mechanism to restore creative exchange. It's been recommended by the Scottish Government, by the Welsh Senedd, the House of Commons DCMS Committee, and it's clear the UK would be welcomed back. So it was a huge boost to UK cultural activity, particularly outside London. So I do urge the UK Government to look again at association. It could be an effective step towards resolving the issue of touring. On touring, yes, of course there are complexities in inconsistent visa regulations, although I hear the good news, carnets, cabotage, CITES, but an overarching cultural exemption could be one way of addressing some of these challenges. There is precedent in the 28 visa waiver agreements that the EU already holds with third countries, and most of them include exceptions that allow payment for sports people and artists. Mr. Sostak spoke of the damage to UK artists, but our other speakers were clear that artists and citizens across the whole of Europe are missing out. And I do urge my EU colleagues, please press the national impact at your EU Parliament so that you make good on the call in the forthcoming implementation report to do something about artists touring. The history of international diplomacy shows that when relationships break down, artists are often the advanced party in restoring trust and confidence. A strong partnership across Europe is more important now, I think, than ever. And so it would be in all our best interest to create the conditions in which cultural exchange can happen and intercultural understanding can thrive.
Thank you very much. Isabella Kalanek.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yesterday morning, we could meet at the Europe House the Chief Executive of Live Music Industry and the General Secretary of the Musicians Union. They told us about the barriers which seem to remain as it comes to creative and cultural exchange since the Brexit. Yesterday afternoon, the PPA recommendations was adopted. We have welcomed the May Summit's recognition of the value of cultural and artistic exchanges, including the activities of touring activities. We have urged the Commission and the Government to give effect to our Assembly's call to provide a comprehensive solution for the challenges faced by touring artists. So my question was, how are we going to work together concretely now to make sure we improve the situation for artists? And thank you, because you have just answered the question, Honourable Minister. So happy to notice that everyone act efficiently. I agree with you. I think that our member states have to be part of the solution. So that's very encouraging. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Caroline Bowden.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's very clear from all the speakers that the issue of touring artists and cultural exchange is really important. And I think it is probably one of the most visible symptoms of the damage and the destruction that Brexit has done, both culturally and economically. If we look at the recent Oasis tour, every single concert brought £55 million in local economic activity to the local area where they were performing. So there's obviously a clear benefit to European cities if UK artists are allowed to tour. But it's not just the big bands that this refers to. I'd like to just focus briefly on orchestras. So the number of UK orchestras touring the EU has dropped by 32% compared to pre-Brexit. And obviously, it's logistically very hard for an orchestra to tour with all the customs regulations and as discussed, and visa regulations, and particularly the cabotage restrictions, which mean that British orchestras can no longer use their own trucks for transport in the EU, and these are specifically equipped for expensive and sensitive instruments because they're limited to just 3 stops before they must leave. I would like to press the European side here that this is about political will. This is something that could easily be resolved. None of this is insurmountable. You obviously want your students to come to UK universities. We've discussed the challenges of that around fees, and obviously there's a lengthy conversation to be had. But somebody's got to move somewhere, and I would urge the European side here to look at these cabotage restrictions particularly, to look at a cultural exemption to the TCA so that we can get our tourists back on, our touring artists back on the road. People can enjoy the cultural contribution that they make, but also it will support local economies across Europe.
Very good.
Thank you. Thomas Bahadur.
Thank you, Chair. I hail from a nation that is both proudly European, but also a vigorous contributing member of the Commonwealth, embracing both identities with pride, purpose, and firm commitment to our shared future. The dual identity gives Malta a uniquely close relationship with the United Kingdom, one lived daily by our citizens in Malta and in the UK, including my own family. My brother has made the UK his home for nearly 2 decades, giving long service to the NHS, raising 3 children that are proudly British, Welsh, and Maltese. So for many of us in Malta, but also across Europe, our cooperation is not abstract diplomacy and words. It is family, opportunity, identity. So the full and faithful implementation of the withdrawal agreement, particularly efficient processing of settled status, the Windsor framework and the DCA is essential if citizens are to feel continuity, dignity, and confidence in their lives in both territories. And nowhere is this more visible or more urgent than the world of culture, education, and youth mobility. Young people cannot afford to inherit a narrower world than the one that my generation and before had. Maltese youth, like British, grew in a Europe where cultural exchange and shared learning were normal, where they studied together, created together, and traveled together. Right Honourable Minister, I actually know who Charlie XCX is and probably can be considered a fan. Many Maltese artists, musicians, and dancers still come to the UK to develop their talents, and British creatives and digital nomads have found home in Malta. These are links that enrich our societies, yet today they are under strain. A meaningful youth mobility scheme is not a luxury, it is essential to avoid the general divide. Restoring UK association to Erasmus Plus and Creative Europe would revive some of the most successful engines. And to close, in the Commonwealth, cultural exchange has always been a source of strength. In the EU, it is a source of unity and identity, but in our relationship, it should be the foundation for renewal and strengthening of our common European heritage and identity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Lord Teverson. Thank you. Yes.
Yes, well, culturally, our self-banishment from the EU marked the end of British people, older as well as young, being able to stay, work and study freely across our continent. We denied ourselves as Brits the freedom of movement across Europe. Of course, the irony of this, and security of borders has been mentioned, since our separation from the EU, net migration into the UK, as well as recorded irregular migration, has actually ballooned and is well above what it was when we were in the single market. Now, we're stuck with that. So what I want to do in this meeting is just to make a shout out for that old process of community twinning that happens between our communities and between our citizens in Europe and ourselves. And I think we should encourage that as a PPA. And I want to make a particular shout out for the European Local Partnerships and Twinning Group, which is working towards those communities and those individuals actually working and culturally exchanging their experiences to each other. This Assembly should do something and to help that into the future. I just want to make it clear that those of us that regret Brexit, we are no longer fighting past battles. We are talking about the future, not the past, partly to get the UK out of its economic stagnation, but more importantly, to become a confident nation in our neighbourhood once again.
Thank you. Elizabeth Dienga, please.
Thank you so much. And as already noted during our March session in Brussels, personal contacts between people are at the heart of the UK and EU partnership, I would say. And so thank you also for the dinner yesterday, because also food is a great part of culture. And I also want to mention that I will follow also football game tonight, because Austria has to change after a long time that we maybe can be part of the group. So, but coming to the point, the recommendation adopted by our Assembly has clearly identified these topics. So touring artists and are faced by bureaucratic obstacles, and we must find new ways to facilitate exchange among people. And I also want to mention this working as last year as a teacher, I know that there is a lot of paperwork to do, a lot of bureaucratic obstacles, and we enjoyed to come to England with our kids and pupils, and so that's very important that we find new opportunities and that we can facilitate all the programs, and it's very, very important that we stay on this. But also, as you just mentioned, is music. That we all agree on. As I said yesterday, music is maybe one of the parts without obstacles of language that we understand, and it's an honor for us that our Austrian musicians can come to England, and also that also we enjoy maybe also a British theatre in our country. So we have a lot to do, and I think we all agree on this. And we should never forget that culture is what makes us and our future great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ben Coleman.
Thank you, Chair. I should declare an interest. My nephew is a would-be touring artist. His group has gone, his bandy's in a couple of groups, gone several times and toured EU countries, and he tells me how much harder it is and bitterly, and how much more difficult it is for them to actually make any money out of these tours, and if it's a fantastic thing. I'm very encouraged and heartened to hear the support from all of us here. We tend to say in the UK both sides of the house, but all the friends here for doing something about this. And obviously I personally want a significant youth experience scheme. I think it would help everybody, and I'd love us to rejoin Erasmus on the right terms, and I hope we will be doing that. And I know it's complicated to sort out, as Signor Gossi said, the issues, we're providers of services. If you're a touring artist, you transport and you import goods. There's lots of issues around that. But my goodness me, if sorting out difficult, complicated issues isn't the bread and butter of the European Union or our relationship, I don't know what is. What I'm really interested in is this really matters to us, and although it would benefit European Union countries, I think, hugely, we have to be honest, it's asymmetrical. It would probably benefit the UK more. So what is it that would give the European Union an appropriate sense of reciprocity, that they've got something in return? Because I think we are, at that level, we have to talk about things in this honest way. And would it be that, and it's been mentioned, would it be that if the UK joining Creative Europe, would that be a significant enough step? Obviously, youth mobility is an important part of that, but I'd love to have a better idea of if there is, and also whether there is likely to be a single view among the member states about how keen they are on resolving this problem. Thank you. I don't know if we have the opportunity to get answers to questions like that, or we just air them and then they hang there till we meet next time.
They are responded to by way of feedback. Kathleen Funchion.
So yesterday it was already mentioned by one of my colleagues that we had a really good event in the EPLO office, had a briefing, and the musicians' unions were in for this, and I was really taken with what they had to say. And I think there is like sometimes in politics we can be aware of the issues, but a lot of, as we say, people on the ground might not be as aware. And one of the measures I think that they're looking at trying to organise is an event in Brussels, potentially in the Parliament early next year. And I think maybe this is something that on both sides, as has been said, both sides of the House can row in behind. Obviously, they'll be coming from Britain and have that perspective, but I believe they're going to tie in with, various music unions and associations in Europe as well. I just think this could be an issue that sometimes we're in danger at these events. We all agree, we all think it should progress, and then everyone leaves, and what's the actual next step? Whereas if they are having an event, it could be a way of building a bit of momentum and building a bit of pressure around the issue. We all know in our political lives, when momentum is gained around an issue, it does tend to get a bit more focus and a bit more attention. And I just think that could be something very practical that we could do as a group, as this PPA, to try and row in and support their event, because they are looking for exactly what all of us are looking for as well, which is that freedom of movement. Some of the very practical things that they were saying, even around if someone is on a very long tour and they might have to come back to London, for example, for a couple of days, and that is seen as breaking your visa. So I do think that there is great potential for a solution in this issue, and I think we should look at that event potentially as a way of kind of garnering support. Thanks, Chair.
Lord Krebs.
As a career scientist, I want to emphasise that culture includes science as well as literature and the performing and visual arts. The great thinkers and scientists who've influenced European history over the past 500 years have formed the basis of our shared cultural heritage. People such as Kepler, Descartes, Copernicus and Newton shared their ideas across Europe and led the Enlightenment revolution. They also helped Europe to become the dominant economic and intellectual force in the world. In today's world, where authoritarianism is on the rise and the notion of truth and free inquiry is being questioned by populist leaders, our shared cultural heritage of free inquiry, challenge and exchange is more important than ever. We should recognise this broad definition of culture and the importance of our universities, research institutes and scholars as an essential part of our shared cultural heritage. Furthermore, we all want to find ways of stimulating economic growth across Europe, and free exchange of ideas and people is crucial to the innovation ecosystem that will deliver growth. As a result of Brexit, new barriers to free exchange were put in place. We've already heard about that, but for instance, the number of European Union students studying science in the UK has dropped by 45% since 2019. It's time to accept the folly of this and to remove the barriers.
Thank you. Luke Flanagan.
Thank you very much. I think as Thomas Payada said himself, I have a similar experience. My family is a cultural exchange of three born in London, near Queen's Park Rangers grounds, so we're all QPR fans. Three of us born in Roscommon, in basically with bogs out every road you come out of our town. So we grew up with basically taking in British culture, trying to watch the BBC and ITV on a very grainy picture. My 11-year-old daughter, who has no memory of that, is a cultural leftover from it because she sleeps with bagpuss every night. So from a cultural point of view, we're in the same melting pot. We're very different, but we're very, very the same at the same time. And for me, the best way to solve conflicts between this idea of, oh, they're different over there and they're different over there and we should have some sort of fear of them, is to actually meet with people. And the best way to do that is to make it as easy as possible to travel, because we have so much in common. And from the point of view of, it was mentioned about music, and the Minister mentioned Duo Lipo. So I just had to text my daughter. She says, that meeting must be awful boring that you're at, before I went to it. She said, can you tell that man that there was an even better British artist, an English lady called Alessi Rose, as the backup to Duo Lipo. So from the point of view of cultural exchanges, they are there. And the one thing, it was also mentioned by a speaker that Europe might look for something back. And I do appreciate that, but I have to say, we get so much back. We get so much back already. I'm a Cure head when I was younger, not anymore. As you can see, I'm not wearing white makeup at the moment. I was a Joy Division fan, and I've seen the Cure play on several occasions in the UK. And for me, I think you were referring to cabotage and the other restrictions that maybe Europe might look for something back. To me, I just have to look at who benefits from this cabotage rule. Who benefits from it? Because if something is happening and it doesn't change, you've got to think to yourself, who benefits from this? And I can't see anyone benefiting from it. So I think we've really got to do something for it. But I'll say it again. I enjoy British culture, and I think we should do more to make it possible that we can mix. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Peter Swallow.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be a part of this assembly where the lasting ties between the UK and our European friends and neighbours are able to really be emphasised. Somebody said yesterday that in this room we are sitting across from each other, facing each other. And what I would say on that is I do agree that it was much nicer when we were visiting you in Europe to be sitting alongside you, as I hope that spiritually, even in this room, we continue to do. Before I was elected to Parliament, I was a classicist, and I will set the slightly tense issue of the Parthenon marbles aside, but I think what I enjoyed so much about studying my subject, about teaching my subject to young people, were those lasting cultural ties, actually that go beyond Europe, but nevertheless tied us into a shared sense of humanity and identity. And I think that for young people to be given the opportunity to travel and learn in Europe, and for Europeans to come to the UK, that is something that I think that we should champion and promote and push for. And that's why I'm so pleased that conversations are ongoing about establishing an ambitious youth guarantee to ensure that there are those cultural exchanges, because those cultural exchanges enrich all of us, enrich all of our cultures. And that's something that I think we must champion and prioritise. And I look forward to continuing to do so.
Thank you. Baroness Crawley.
It's all very well to say Brexit is done and dusted and we must move on. But a whole generation of young people have had an enormous setback through Brexit. A setback in working, studying and performing across Europe. The Europe of today means that it needs more youthful hope and collaboration as much as it needs urgent rearmament. I welcome the progress that the government has made and the EU working together since the reset on youth mobility. The work on our rejoining Erasmus Plus is also hugely welcomed. However, as colleagues have said, the common understanding reached in May does not contain any specific measures to facilitate touring artists. Despite hugely increased costs for artists, there is little movement on exemptions from cabotage regulations for organisations such as orchestras, and the visa and work permits that are needed, waivers that are needed for cultural workers. Rules of origin have also made it very difficult for small bands to sell merchandise, and if you're unable to sell merchandise, I understand that can make or break a tour. We would also, of course, welcome the unilateral steps made by the UK government, and it's good to see our Minister here today, to reduce costs on touring artists, especially on expensive carnets, customs, paperwork, and the problems that signing up to CITES might bring. Perhaps being part of a stronger Europe in these creative sectors is vital when we see what's happening in the United States and around the world in restrictions on cultural freedom and expression.
Thank you very much. Baroness Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair, and could I also welcome the Minister and the representative from the European Commission. There is undoubtedly wonderful experiences that can be gained by collaboration, and I obviously want to see further collaboration. And whilst I welcome the outcomes from the UK-EU summit, I would urge the government and the EU to work towards a resolution on Creative Europe, on touring artists, and the Erasmus programme. And coming from Northern Ireland, we can benefit from the Erasmus programme, courtesy of the Irish government, something that we welcome. But there should be a solution to that, because one thing is sure, that we should never conflate working together, collaboration, creativity and cultural exchanges with migration. Undoubtedly, culture and equals economic growth and development, and those features should be encouraged. So I would urge the government and the EU to come to a solution on touring artists, to come to a solution on Erasmus and Creative Europe, to facilitate those greater levels of mutual understanding, collaboration, which will bring benefits to all our economies right across the European Union.
Thank you. We're a Hobhouse.
Thank you. It's really such a joy to work in this group together. Some people will know I'm originally from Germany, but I'm a British citizen. I'm a British MP, but I'm a product of Europe. I don't think I would have so easily been a British parliamentarian and worked here so easily if previously Europe hadn't existed for all of us. So I come from Hanover, my background is in the visual arts, and obviously during the Brexit desert years, which I would call between 2019 and 24, but I think we are really making a new start here. I was trying, obviously, to create relationships with my original home in Germany, worked with wherever I could, either in Berlin or Hanover, which is my hometown, to create some links either between young people or in the cultural sector. And it was incredibly difficult to do that on a bilateral basis, despite all the efforts that we did with the British-German Chamber of Commerce, for example, where that creates a link. So I have understood that bilaterally we cannot really do anything from country to country. It has to be a European initiative. And since we are all together here in a room from different European countries, I hope that this group will really together push for a European solution to this problem. And I think we have all understand through the exchanges that we had, it benefits all of us. It benefits all of us. So I hope that this group will make real progress. Thank you.
Stella Creasy.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I do apologise for being late this morning. I had to do what we call the school run to take my children, which, as anybody's ever done that knows, it can be a chaotic experience. And often on that school run, I use music to get my children to go where they need to go. But I want to tell this group about a beautiful experience I had on Saturday evening, where I was with my children again, and we came across a flash mob of people dancing in the street. and they were dancing to the Macarena. Now, anybody who remembers the Macarena knows it's quite a complicated dance, but for all of us, it is in our hearts because it was music of our childhood. So there were hundreds of us desperately trying to remember the steps, and I can show you the video to show it didn't quite work. But whether it is the Macarena or Ace of Base, another banger from my childhood, or indeed the Beatles. Many people in this room here, if I started to say, na, 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 you'd sing along. Or even the chairman and his love of Oasis. I have to be honest, Chair, that I think there are better bands from Manchester. Music. But what I know is that the ability to share music, to share culture, to inspire can only happen if we nurture it. We come here today, colleagues, to look to how we can build cultural exchange because we know the Beatles would not have made it had they not been able to go to Hamburg. Had the Macarena not been able to be played in clubs here in the UK, it would not have succeeded as much and we would all miss out. And we are missing out. Already, fewer of our children are learning about each other's culture because of Brexit. Fewer of our children are going to university with each other. There's been an 80% drop in school trips from the UK to Europe as a result of Brexit. We want to work with you to inspire the next generation. My daughter knew the steps of the Macarena. She's 6 years old. But if we don't get the cultural exchange right and get this programme right, what will our children learn from us? Just bad footwork rather than how we can come together.
Thank you, Stella. Very good. Delif Joel.
Diolch, Chair. It's a pleasure to speak. Some comments have been made about the layout of this room. These grand committee rooms don't perhaps always help to promote a common understanding. They are rooms designed for confrontation with some of us literally on the margins. The concerns of the devolved parliaments, though, are not marginal. I hope and trust that our concerns will be kept at the heart of these deliberations. Last month in the Senedd, 4 of our committees published a joint report on how the TCA operates in Wales. We heard once again about Brexit's adverse effects on touring artists and how UK participation in Creative Europe remains elusive. Our artists are crying out for help. We must show them that we are listening. Touring artists have been handed one of Brexit's most intractable problems. It need not be so. Young artists especially risk losing out on opportunities that cannot be measured because they never were. We must ensure that we don't create a generation of lost chances, missed moments, broken dreams. We owe them nothing less than to ensure that does not happen. Culture connects us, culture enriches us. Above all, as the great Welshman Raymond Williams said, culture is ordinary. Let us do all we can to keep it as the treasure of the many and not the luxury of the few. Diolch.
Thank you very much. Claire Adamson.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Scottish Parliament. I convene the Constitution Europe, External Affairs and Culture Committee. I thank Mr Scott Stick for laying out his 4 themes, which I think encapsulates everything that we're concerned about, and many of the points I would have made have been made already from our report into touring artists and opportunities for young people. However, we have mentioned Oasis at the moment. I just want to remind everyone that Oasis got their start in the city of Glasgow in a venue called King Tut's, and without that opportunity and without those small venues and our emerging artists and young people being able to do those exchanges, we will not have the Lewis Capaldis of the future. Just as our national performing organisations, Scottish Opera, the Royal Scottish National Orchestra, Scottish Chamber Orchestra and Scottish Ballet, without youth exchange and music opportunities for at a younger age and for emerging artists, that simply won't happen. And it is economies for scale. For an artist who's maybe touring out the back of a van, the issues around merchandising are huge. It's an important stream of income for them, but they can't possibly relabel for every European country they're visiting. And it's these things that are dissuading people from taking that opportunity. So we also need to support our festivals. The Minister will have no surprise about that as representing Edinburgh, but we also have our festivals like the area where my Deputy Convener represents, St Magnus Festival in Orkney as well. And it's very important that these festivals that are built on traditions of culture and exchange are protected into the future. I didn't ask them how they're supporting the team tonight, as they've been Danish for a lot of their life at time as well. So perhaps there'll be a few split families in Orkney this evening. But thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I thank everybody for all of their contributions? So many references to music. We all debate whether Manchester is where it's at, though, because I have to say it's all about London. But nonetheless, I'm going to bring the Minister in. Thank you.
Marsha, thank you very much indeed, and I hope we've not kick-started a debate about who has the best musical artists or where are the best festivals, because the answer is surely Edinburgh. But let me just quickly respond to what's been said, but can I just start by a sort of general comment about the tone and the way in which people have been talking about these kinds of cultural exchanges, because they are hugely important and they enrich all of our lives. That is the reciprocal nature of these issues, is that everyone's lives are enriched by experiencing each other's cultures. And Mr Flanagan put it so well from Ireland in terms of his experiences. I'm not quite so sure you paid your TV licence to watch Bagpuss on a grainy television set, but perhaps we'll collect that from you at the end of the meeting. But it does show you the way in which the cultural exchanges are really important to our communities. And now more than ever, we require culture and arts and access to it to be the glue that holds our communities together, and the one which transcends communities into other countries as well, and having those experiences. And I can't emphasise enough to Miss Kalinek from France how excited we are about the Bayeux Tapestry coming to the UK, and how that experience is not just going to be felt by the people who can see it, but by the outreach programmes, the education, the involvement of young people in schools and education, and the impact that will have on France as well in terms of people's interest of going to visit France, etc. My wife is French, from the Ardèche region, so we have very much a cultural exchange in our household regardless. And my daughters, as Miss Creasy talked about, my daughters are 5 and 10 months old, and my 5-year-old is fluent in French and very much sees that cultural aspect of France. So it's really important for families and communities to do so. Let me just touch on a few of the other points that were raised, and I think it was kicked off very aptly by Baroness Bull, in the sense that what we've tried to do from a United Kingdom perspective and from a government perspective is to reset that relationship. And now nobody ever says that these issues are going to be easily resolved. They are complicated, but we're all in this room together, a large number of us from across the continent of Europe, to try and resolve some of these issues. And the most important thing from the UK-EU summit, it wasn't necessarily the conclusion and the agreements that were made, but it was the commitment to have a summit annually in the UK and the EU to discuss these issues, not only on an individual basis for progress, but to deepen that relationship further. We always said as a government that this is the Trade and Cooperation Agreement and the Windsor Framework and all the other agreements that we have as a country were the floor and not the ceiling of our ambitions for our relationship with Europe. And I hope that our colleagues from the European Union, wherever you're from across the continent of Europe, you've seen that we have made very strong efforts to reset the relationship, and that agreement back in May was a culmination of that starting point of that reset and what we can do together. And Ms Voden said very clearly, did talk about Oasis and the economic impact of that, but for me this is also about the future Oases. Where are they coming from? And you know, there'll be nobody in this room who doesn't hunker around their television sets and watch the Eurovision Song Contest and enjoy each other's cultures coming from all parts of the European continent, and enjoying what that has to offer. And that in itself is an epitome of what we try and do in terms of that cultural exchange across Europe, and something that we all enjoy and should cherish, and use that as the example of why we should be exposed to each other's cultures, good or bad. And there was a little bit about culinary diplomacy, which I think is good. Now we do break bread together, we do eat together, and that is the way of us introducing ourselves to each other and enjoying time together. But that feeds into that cultural exchange, and something, again, that we should be working very hard to try and achieve. This isn't easy. I mean, youth mobility, Erasmus Plus, and indeed touring, which many members have talked about. These are difficult things to resolve. But I think we can hear the commitment from both governments, from the European Union and the UK government, but from also each individual component part of that from member states and everyone in this room, that there's a real desire to try and find that way forward. And if there is that political desire that many members have spoken about, then I'm sure we can get to a very positive conclusion that will help all of our citizens. And that really is the reciprocal nature of this. It is in the UK's benefit to have these issues resolved, particularly with touring, but it's also in the European continent's benefit to have artists being able to transcend boundaries and borders to be able to perform and share that cultural heritage. So thank you for all your contributions. But I just finish with a message that you have a huge commitment, a significant commitment, a generational commitment from this UK government that the relationship and the reset relationship with the EU is real. We're committed to it. We want to resolve these issues, and we see very much the resolution of these issues as the floor of our future relationship with the European Union and not the ceiling.
Thank you, Minister. I'll come to you now, Mr. Shostak.
Thank you very much for the exchange. Thank you very much for the support expressed for programs like Creative Europe, for the Youth Experience Scheme, support also for issues related to tuition fees. We listened very carefully, of course, to everything that was said on touring artists. So we understand the strength of feeling in the room. As I mentioned, I think on the Commission side, we're open to ideas that can make this better. So we heard the points that you made. Some of them will be difficult. Cabotage, for example, isn't liberalised within the EU because it's a very sensitive sector and the balance to find between member states is very difficult. Other ideas we'll try to work. We'll report all of this to our member states next week, and certainly pass on the strength of feeling. So thank you very much for the very rich exchange, and we will report all of this back and see what can be done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes that plenary session. I will now hand over to Sandro.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Masha. We move to a point which, in my perspective, is strictly related to what we have been just discussed, because we are moving to the point on artificial intelligence and digital cooperation. And I hope, I'm sure that I'm not wrong if I say that talking about artificial intelligence for both of us means to promote a humanist approach, a human-centered artificial intelligence, an artificial intelligence where human beings remain the focus, the beneficiaries, and the ones in control. And I am very pleased that our executive has taken on our recommendation. You know that one of the innovations that we brought in this term with our partnership assembly is to insist a lot on artificial intelligence and digital dialogue. There is some movement going toward the right direction. In July, at executive level, both EU and UK decided to introduce this issue and to open a chapter. I think that it's just the beginning. I think this chapter should be structured, wider, involving civil society and involving a stronger parliamentary dimension. And this is why we insist a lot, and I insist a lot in having a focus in this plenary on this issue. There is a humanist dimension, there is a competitive dimension, there is an innovation dimension, and I think that we have to keep the dialogue because of course, we are moving both in terms of investment, in terms of innovation strategy, in terms of regulatory approach on artificial intelligence. You have just the UK, I'm referring to our UK friend. There is a recent memorandum of understanding with the US on technology prosperity. On our side, we are in the midst of the implementation of the new Artificial Intelligence Act. So I think that also from this perspective, which is, less cultural, more regulatory, I think that the dialogue is certainly of the utmost importance. I think that from a European perspective, so European, I include EU and UK perspective, we can and we should, this is my personal feeling, develop a model, an approach to AI which is alternative to the US model, where the big tech is the first and the final words, and from the Chinese model, when the Communist Party have the only word. I think that there is scope for another approach, an alternative approach, and there are also the fora I mean, G7 is one of these. The General Assembly of the United Nations has adopted a resolution on artificial intelligence on the 26th of August. The resolution focused on a global dialogue on AI governance. I think that we have to it's in our interest to avoid another divide between developed countries and developing countries, which is an AI divide, because in this case, the less developed country was really under a dictatorship of the big tech. And I don't think that this is acceptable, and this is not human, and this is not in our interest also, beyond the cultural aspect. I would say there is also an economic interest in avoiding this. This is why I'm really pleased to have this point open for discussion, and I think that it's not the first time and won't be the last time. And today, to discuss about this, we got two guest speakers. Lucilla Scioli, she's a director of Artificial Intelligence Office within the European Commission, and the Right Honourable Ian Murray, Minister for Creative Industry, Media and Arts. And I would like to start with Mrs. Scioli. So please, the floor is yours, and welcome to London.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Honourable Chair Gozzi, Honourable Chair de Cordova, Right Honourable Member of State for Creative Industry, Media and Arts, and for Digital Government and Data, distinguished members, I'm honoured to be here with you at this 6th meeting of the EU-UK Parliamentary Partnership Assembly. And I would like to discuss the priorities of the Commission in the field of AI. It's about strengthening our competitiveness and our sovereignty in this important area. Because now we stand at a turning point. Artificial intelligence and other frontier technologies are really transforming every sector, from healthcare to finance, from energy to defense. And even on the battlefield of Ukraine, we can see that a lot of this new technology translates into security and strategic strength. And the digital sphere is now the backbone of our society, where we work, where we live. We need to be able to protect it. And certainly this is what we aim to do in the European Union with a legislation called Artificial Intelligence Act. But regulation, of course, is not enough. We also have to be able to move and stimulate innovation and make sure that we use and that we develop artificial intelligence that is made in Europe. And this is very much also the objective of the office which I have the honor to lead. We have created in the European Commission an artificial intelligence office which started working a bit more than a year ago. We have published with, we have an ambition. The ambition of the European Union is to become an AI leading continent. And we have published a strategy called the AI Continent Action Plan. In this strategy, we have put a lot of attention on the infrastructure and the computing capacity that is a very important element for being able to develop artificial intelligence. And we now have AI factories. These are factories, as we call them, which are built around a unique characteristic that has the European continent, which is the fact that we have a network of public supercomputers. And this means that the access to the supercomputers for researchers and for startups and SMEs is actually for free. And we are building around the supercomputers what we call factories, meaning we leverage the power of the supercomputers, but we also offer services for training, for engineering, and we use them to strengthen our ecosystem in the area of artificial intelligence. So now we have 19 hubs in the European Union and 13 antennas. And I'm very glad to hear that there will be one antenna also in the United Kingdom. As I said, this very much helps researchers and SMEs. And now we are preparing the so-called gigafactories. These are very, very powerful supercomputers integrated with data centers, they're very expensive, so this cannot be financed by the public sector alone. It will have to be a public-private partnership. We had a call for expression of interest to see which actors, if any, was interested in the European Union to participate to this endeavor. And we received more than 77 replies with 60 potential proposed sites and over 70 billion euros of proposed investment. And this is overwhelming, but it's an indication that there is a lot of interest in investing in artificial intelligence in the European Union. In the meanwhile, we also work on quantum strategies, on chips strategy, on cloud, because this is what we consider to be the stack, the technological stack, which is necessary for being able to develop artificial intelligence. All this technology and computing capacity will be very important for developing the frontier artificial intelligence. And we will soon have a call in the European Union exactly to be able to push our capabilities and keep ourselves with a very advanced artificial intelligence model. Recently, we published an Apply AI strategy. This is to facilitate integration of these artificial intelligence models into the key economic sectors of our economy, from defense to energy to healthcare to manufacturing and so on, and also in the public sector. And we have proposed concrete measures per sector, but we have also proposed and encouraged the application of a policy that we call an AI-first policy, where we would like organizations that face complex challenges to consider AI always as a potential solution, taking into account, of course, also the fact that the solution brings a lot of benefits, it could bring some risk, and therefore it will also be important to make this particular balance. And we have also proposed to invest a lot more in people. There is no uptake of technology unless there is more literacy of the workforce. These sectors are going to be transformed by artificial intelligence, and the workforce needs to be accompanied also in this transformation. We have set up an AI Skills Academy for this purpose. Innovation needs the appropriate framework, and so it also needs rules that are innovation friendly. That's what we think we have done with the AI Act. Tomorrow we will publish a proposal for a simplification of the AI Act. It's called the Digital Omnibus, and this is intended, it will not change the structure nor the protection offered by the AI Act, but it simply facilitates the intersection between the AI Act and other pieces of legislation, and it will also extend some exemptions from which are granted for small medium enterprises also to small companies, to small medium companies. We will also have to look at the entry into application of rules relating to high-risk applications, because you may have heard there has been a delay in the preparation of standards, so we will be proposing a solution there. But the rest of the AI Act has been applicable the way it is, so we have a limited number of prohibitions that are applicable since February last year, which include applications such as social scoring, for example. These are applications we do not tolerate in the European Union. And also, in August, rules relating to general purpose artificial intelligence models, sort of generative AI models, which power very famous chatbots we all use nowadays. These rules are supervised directly by the AI Office, and we work a lot with the UK Security Institute on these matters. We are part of a network of safety institutes, as we call it, and we collaborate closely on the testing and evaluation of these particular models. And last but not least, of course, we want to build strong partnerships. We want to strengthen our international partnerships with like-minded countries like the UK. And we think that no region can manage the technological transformation alone. And together we can share research, we can share supply chains, we can build resilience. And of course we have a long history behind us. And so when we talk about sovereignty, we are not talking about isolation and autarky. We are only talking about being able to have the right capabilities and also being able to not depend exclusively from one source of production for a certain product or service. And so we need collaboration and we need cooperation. And so we look forward to the next dialogue on the digital dialogue between the UK and the European Union, which will take place next year. So I think that just to summarize what we are doing is that we are equipping ourselves to be more sovereign in the area of AI. We don't want to be followers in AI. We want to be able to lead. And we are putting in place the framework for these different steps. Innovation, but an innovation that is responsible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Scioli. And now, Mr. Murray, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. And it's buy one, get one free from me today, I'm afraid, in terms of the contribution, just given the joint portfolio I have across government in terms of AI and the cultural sector. But it's a great pleasure to speak on this because I think, as Ms. Saleo has defined, this is one of the biggest issues of our time. And if we don't grasp this, it will be done to us rather than us shaping what needs to be done. And this is probably, from our perspective as a government, the largest economic opportunity for generations, but also the largest challenge in terms of the complicated nature of what we need to do, working together across governance, but it's also transforming our industries, it's reshaping labour markets, raising profound questions about governance, and the human agency in terms of data, and all of those things that we've talked about in terms of the UK and the EU for some time, in terms of how we both seize those opportunities, but we have those shared and common values around how we resolve some of these big issues. So we welcome the chance to deepen our strategic dialogue with the European Union on AI and data and digital. These technologies, of course, transcend borders. We're seeing that already. And ensuring safety and transparency in our AI systems, securing resilient compute infrastructure and unlocking the potential of data for the public good are all clearly in all of our shared interests. And that's why close cooperation between the UK and the EU is absolutely essential. Now, we've already come a long way, as we've already heard from my colleague. We've made great progress to the UK's reassociation to Horizon Europe, which was a major step forward. On AI and data, the UK and the EU are undertaking an ambitious programme to expand our public AI infrastructure. And in the UK, we have our AI Opportunities Action Plan and our Compute Roadmap with a £1 billion commitment to a network of supercomputers and cloud resources by 2030, which will be available on an open basis to researchers, startups, SMEs, and of course the public sector. And as the EU builds out its own network through Euro HPC, there will be great opportunities to learn from each other on how that progresses. So the UK remains a committed member of Euro HPC, and we are proud to fund joint research with our European partners on that basis. And just last month, Edinburgh, which is my hometown, as you already know, was named as the site of the new Euro HPC AI factory antenna. Now, with both the UK and the EU funding this project jointly, based at the Edinburgh Parallel Computing Centre, and just incidentally, as a fast fact about Edinburgh and AI, the University of Edinburgh has had an AI institute since 1963, and therefore are not new to the issues of AI, and indeed AI in terms of those kinds of ethics are not new to the university at all. But that marks a new stage with the Edinburgh Parallel Computing Centre of collaboration between the UK and will fuel AI research well into the future. So we're looking forward to the first EU-UK digital dialogue early next year, where AI will be the key focus of those discussions, and we're pleased to be working with the EU colleagues to agree an AI partnership that will advance our respective objectives. In addition to the digital dialogue, the EU and the UK will have a strong relationship on data protection, and I welcome the publication of the draft adequacy decisions by the EU. We also share a strong understanding of the need to build private data centres to realise the full potential of AI for growth, and we've heard about those from the previous contributor. And the UK's policy has been to incentivise private AI data centres by establishing AI growth zones across the whole of the United Kingdom. These are dedicated sites across the UK with access to power and streamlined planning support to encourage and to nurture that inward investment. And similarly, in the EU, you have the Cloud and AI Development Act to streamline the deployment of data centres. So cooperation on AI and data centres will be paramount in that particular structure. AI governance is a global question and the key question that no country can resolve alone, but we must resolve it together. It's an imperative to resolve it together. The UK and the EU collaboration is absolutely essential in doing so. Our shared aim is to build public trust, and that's a key thing, public trust in AI, and reduce burdens for businesses. We look forward to working closely as the EU implements the AI Act and as the UK develops its own approach to AI regulation. In addition to the digital dialogue, the EU and the UK have a strong relationship on data protection, and I welcome the publication of the draft adequate decisions, as I've said earlier. Can I just spend a moment on skills? Because, of course, the workforce and the labour market changes in terms of AI is a great issue for us all and a concern for many. And reskilling and skilling up our workforce across Europe is going to be key to making sure we can have the careers of the future for young people in this great economic opportunity, but also making sure that the people are upskilled to be able to develop AI. And there are fears and legitimate fears that AI will replace many jobs, particularly blue and white collar jobs across Europe. But I think where we need to get to in terms of a mindset of the UK and the EU with regards to skills is to see that probably the jobs that will be replaced will be the workers that adopt and use AI will replace the workers that don't. And that is why the reskilling of the workforce is hugely important in terms of making sure that as many workers as possible are completely skilled in AI and the adoption of that across the economy. And finally, Chair, both the UK and the EU are committed to follow the science of AI with rigorous evidence-based research and policies. And again, we have common ground here with the UK's AI Security Institute and the EU's AI Office. We've already collaborated extensively through the networks of AISIs, an international grouping that seeks to build consensus on AI research and best practice, and future collaboration in the network will be absolutely vital in that key area. In short, the UK Government is determined to intensify work with the EU and make our progress on these shared priorities. I look forward to a constructive exchange today and hearing your perspectives on how we can work together and deepen this partnership further for the benefit of our citizens, our economies and our shared future. And if I can just finish, Chair, by just saying I'm not only looking forward to the discussion, but this is going to be a discussion that will continue and intensify for some months ahead. And our AI specialist in Downing Street, who advises the Prime Minister, told the UK Cabinet a few months ago that by the time of the next UK general election in 2029, AI compute capacity will be able to work independently for 30 consecutive days non-stop without any human intervention whatsoever. And when you put it into that context, it means that the work that this group does and the work that governments will do across Europe and between the UK and the EU will be vital in making sure that public policy can stay ahead of those big issues. Because if we don't stay ahead of those big issues in terms of a public policy perspective, they will run ahead of us and we'll lose control of what the great opportunities are here with AI and digital and data, but also the dangers that go alongside that will be very much amplified. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Concerning the digital dialogue, I would like to seize this opportunity to tell you that we expect to be fully involved in this dialogue, and not only because we are at the origin of the proposal, but because the digital dialogue makes sense only if there is a strong involvement of the parliamentary dimension and the civil society. I would hand over now to Marcia, if you have some comments.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Also, can I just thank both of our speakers for their fantastic contributions. And goodness, Minister, that comment you just made as you concluded your remarks about 2029, it gives us so much food for thought. But I don't think we can truly underestimate the impact that AI will and actually is having on our societies, especially as it is combined with other advances. We can lean into those opportunities it offers, but be that efficiency, be that around improved productivity, or actually enhancing accessibility that will break down barriers for disabled people. But we have to, in my view, not be too slow in wanting to adopt some of those advances, because if we are slow to respond and to act in this space, then we will simply be left behind, and I don't think we can afford to do that. However, that said, I don't believe we can be naive to some of the challenges that it also presents, and it feels like we have to do so much learning as we go in this space. But that's why probably regulation actually will be important in this space. And I know that it does present its challenges to getting that right, but inaction really will not be an option on this. There is a great need to address some of the issues around harmful content and disinformation, and our shared values gives us a real strong reason to work together where we can on this. And I'm sure we can cooperate closely, and things like the digital dialogue that will be coming up, I think, will be a huge part of that, but it will also help us to learn from other experiences. I just want to touch on, I know we've already spoken about creators, but creative copyright, as we know that some AI companies are training their models on copywriting material without having the consent of those creators. And I think that it is vital that we act to protect our creatives and assert their rights around copyright. And we must act quickly on that to preserve their livelihoods. And, you know, I say this to my government and to others, we really have to put the protection of our creatives front and centre when we are looking at the way that copywriting is being used in that space. So thank you for that, but I'll hand over to the Chair.
Thank you very much, Marsha, also to draw our attention such a key issues like copyright, on which also within the European Parliament we are very sensitive. Colleague, now the floor is open. You got 2 minutes for your intervention, and we start with Nina Carberry.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for this important discussion. I'd like to hone in on online child safety. I'd like to start by welcoming the recent joint communication by the European Commission, UK Ofcom and Australia's e-Safety Commissioner to work together on age assurance solutions. It's an important step to improve children's safety online while protecting privacy and security. Given these new collaboration and ongoing work at an EU level on DSA and the online safety bill in the UK, I would like to ask you both, can you go into more detail as to what you hope the concrete outcomes will be from this initiative and what specific goals or milestones have been set? For example, developing technical standards, ensuring privacy and supporting independent research, and how will children, parents, experts, civil society voices be involved so that solutions are effective, evidence-based and rights-respecting. And I welcome the collaboration, but it is vital that it leads to clear targets, transparent progress and tangible protection for our young people. And any detail that you could provide would be greatly appreciated and extremely helpful. I have 40 seconds left, so I'd like to maybe hear your views on cognitive outsourcing to AI, and is there much research being done in that area, protecting cognitive health with AI and balancing the approach to that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Baroness Bull.
Thank you. As we've heard, artificial intelligence is the defining opportunity of our generation, and the UK and the EU have already demonstrated that structured collaboration can deliver measurable outcomes. We have joint investment in compute infrastructure and shared research networks that are allowing both sides to retain competitiveness in the face of global competition. So expanding these partnerships, pooling infrastructure and expertise is not a nice to have. It's absolutely essential to innovation, economic resilience, and to maintaining Europe's relevance in frontier technology. Cooperation also matters because an over-reliance on US and China-based AI models may put Europe at risk and threaten our ability to stand up for our shared values. Algorithmic bias puts equality and accountability at risk in recruitment, education, finance, and public services. And since bias arises from data rather than geography, it can't be resolved within national borders. Alignment is going to be crucial if AI is going to enhance and not undermine social justice. I also note the need to protect creators' rights and ensure transparency over training data. Europe is setting the pace in clarifying these boundaries. I think of the Munich court ruling that ChatGPT infringed copyright by training on protected song lyrics, and I would say perhaps our government has something to learn here from the EU. Finally, as we've heard, AI underpins trade, culture, research, indeed our everyday lives, but the TCA has no provisions at all relating to AI and digital governance. So the 26 review offers the opportunity not just to formalise existing collaborations on compute, safety, education and creative rights, but to update the agreement for the AI era. In doing so, it will consolidate Europe's role as a global leader in safe, trustworthy and human-centred AI.
Thank you very much. Katarina Barley.
Thank you so much for bringing up this, I would say, existential topic. I think we all agree on the advantages of AI. I mean, it's going to bring huge progress in health and science, in whatever. So I would like to focus a bit more on the challenges and risks. Some of them have already been named. But I think the main challenge and risk is that we all become transparent. And we already are, in fact. I mean, all these big tech firms know a lot about ourselves, even if we don't give them the data, but just by the way we use our mobile phones. And that means that we become addicted. I mean, look at us. I don't know who hasn't touched his or her phone, and including myself. I mean, we're, and look at youth. This is really a serious form of addiction. It's manipulation, also there. Look at our youth. The main source of information is TikTok and YouTube, and we all know how reliable the information is you get there. And thirdly, it is a form of, I call it double isolation. First of all, many people just run around even in the streets like this. So you isolate yourself from others. And then within the bubble, you are isolated. We live in different worlds. We cannot come together and discuss because we rely on different facts. It's not opinions, it's facts. So if we take all this into account, we have to decide if we sort of go with the flow, it's what's going to happen, and if not, we're going to be left behind, or if we want to set rules, efficient rules. And you may guess that I'm on the side of setting rules. We have done that as a European Union, the GDPR being the most important one, which says essentially your data belongs to you. It's your right. Nobody has the right to take it away from you without consent. And the second one is the AI Act. And I have to say, I'm a bit worried when I think of the omnibus and I see what is being leaked. Let's see how we can react to that. But of course, it's also a question of the adequacy decision. I mean, I like to have trust in the UK, but I also have to be sure that the data that is being shared with the UK is not going to the tech bros in the US, who I don't trust for a bit. So I would like to quote Tina Turner, who was married to a German and used to live in Germany. Let's stay together. Thank you.
Dear Katarina, I'm looking forward to debate the digital omnibus, but that's for another place, another parliament. Lord Kirkhope, please.
Thank you. I bear the scars of being part of the preparation of the GDPR when I was in Brussels. And I moved, luckily, into helping UK AI organisation. But I'm just making it quite clear now that we are probably the least equipped. However clever we might be on the subject, we're the least equipped as legislators to deal with this matter. Unless we have different kinds of legislation, smart legislation is what I call it, we will never ever keep up with the developments that are going on, nor do we want to stop those developments, particularly if they are positive. However, we do need to have in place sufficient regulation in the same way as GDPR has safety, redress available to those who are abused. We need that there too. The question is, however, are we going to go down the route that my old colleague Axel Voss went down with the European Union? Are we going to actually be as prescriptive, or are we going to move towards a laissez-faire situation as the United States sees? Either way, ladies and gentlemen, we have to make sure that there is some clarity and interoperability. So we do need to work together. It's absolutely vital, both in terms of what we decide, but also joint research and joint planning.
and also ways in which we can avoid misuse, cyber threats, and disinformation, which is one of the biggest threats to the democratic process that I have come across in my entire life. We want a practical agenda, looking ahead and maximizing the opportunities, and at the same time we need to be very careful that ultimately we protect democratic values, we make sure our economies are not weakened but strengthened, we ensure that the technology, at the end of the day, serves the public interest. There are some very encouraging signs in the positive use of AI, but I'm afraid to say that unless we get a proper balance, we are in great danger of having it abuse us and having it being misused to bad effect.
Thank you. Elizabeth Dieringer.
Thank you so much. I have maybe another point of view of some of you, so because I would like to say that the EU AI Act was created in itself with the goal of minimizing risk and protecting citizens. But now we are going, however, in reality in another direction. And I think we are now in the way of an excessive regulation, and this is what I want to mention here, and that we have to be aware of this, and that we are building like a regulatory protective wall for the largest actors while pushing out smaller companies, and that should actually be driving Europe's digital future. And we have to think about this. Regulation is necessary, but it must focus on where concrete risks are in the use of AI in sensitive areas such as healthcare, security, finance, or labor law. But at the end, I don't know, my colleague first was talking about this. Yes, we use it, and also the other colleague talked that we have it here, it's now reality, and we can't go behind all these realities. So we have to focus on this, that instead of over-regulation, we have to keep Europe, the UK, also prepared for the future, but in a certain way of competitiveness. Thank you.
Thank you. Francesco Torselli.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all. It is an honor to speak about an important and strategic topic in a marvelous place like this Parliament. I would like to share a brief reflection with this delegation. We are on the threshold of a new era, exactly like 30 years ago, when the first cellular phones entered our pockets for the first time. Or 20 years ago, when we all discovered the fascinating world of social networks. And just like then, we are facing a doubt. Will AI be an ally for our work and our lives, or will it be a dangerous enemy? Dear colleagues, the rest of the world is running fast. USA, China, but also Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, are already running away from us. And this distance is all in a number. The EU and UK together produce today only 10% of the microchips inside our technological devices. This percentage falls down to 1% if we consider the new technological microchips designed for AI use. The question, so, is not whether artificial intelligence will be an ally or an enemy, but whether we want to regulate its use ourselves, together UE and UK, I hope, or accept rules written by someone else. Dear colleagues, we have a lot of work to do and little time. Thank you.
Thank you. Baroness Nicholson.
Thank you very much. I should explain that my background is in servo electronique, and therefore I suggest that our approach should be that our data cannot be protected any longer, and that I was responsible for the computer software copyright bill and for the hacking bill here, which I brought into Brussels and then tried to manage to bring into the USA but did not succeed because they've come from a different background. Is it not better to perceive that we do not have control over any electronic data, however hard governments may try, and we should try, and the European Union and the rest of us should try? Nonetheless, there's all sorts of things like computer hacking. What some person can do, I can undo. I'm a computer person. And I recommend we think of it a little bit differently in the round. We cannot genuinely protect. What can we do that will be helpful to the citizen despite that?
Thank you very much. Michael McNamara.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's quite clear that both the EU and the UK have very ambitious plans for AI and indeed are beginning to put those into implementing them, but the question is whether that will lead to convergence or divergence. In February of this year, eyebrows were raised when the UK declined to sign the AI Action Summit's declaration, particularly given that the UK had initiated the whole Bletchley Park process and summits. In September, the UK and US agreed a memorandum of understanding on the technology prosperity deal. And I suppose the question that I'd like to ask is, what are the regulatory implications of that memorandum, if any? The UK and Canada also published a joint statement on advancing AI safety, which included a commitment to developing AI safety standards internationally. Businesses in the UK which provide and deploy AI systems, and businesses anywhere in the world which deploy or provide AI systems in the EU have to, if they come into the scope of the, if the deployed systems come within the scope of the AI Act, have to comply with the standards that are currently being developed under the AI Act, albeit perhaps more slowly than was initially envisaged. And Article 40 of that encourages the consideration of international standards. And I'm just wondering, in that context, is the UK's approach to encourage alignment with the EU AI Act, or is it otherwise? Earlier this year it was announced that the UK and EU would hold a UK-EU digital dialogue. Of course, that's very welcome. We've heard from the Minister of the UK's commitment to Euro HPC, which is also very welcome. But I'm just wondering, that is very much around hardware and developing the capacity and capabilities for AI rather than the regulatory regime, and where we're heading with regard to convergence or otherwise of those regulatory regimes. Thank you.
Thank you. Para Holmgren.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to start by trying to make a bridge to the previous subject we discussed regarding touring artists. As Marcia also mentioned already, the problem with copyright issues. From what I understand, Sir Paul McCartney has released a new track with just sounds and noise as a reaction to this. From what I understand also, your very, very talented, beautiful Kate Bush will do something similar in the next few days, and a number of other artists as well. This is one example. I mean, this is not a core issue of artificial intelligence, and I would like to stress that artificial intelligence is not here to stay. It's here to accelerate. And we cannot stop this development, but we do need to be responsible regarding who's in control, who will feel the benefit, and who will make the money out of it. For the second minute, I would like to focus on the fact that I'm the contact person for the European Parliament to the European Environment Agency with its headquarters in Copenhagen. And unfortunately, due to Brexit, UK is not a member anymore of EEA. Our colleagues in Switzerland are, my Scandinavian neighbors in Norway and Iceland. They are also members of the EEA. And I recommend you all to read and check their latest report, the State of European Environment, released just a few weeks ago. And we all know how important it is with reliable data tackling the triple crisis that we're into with climate change, loss of biodiversity and air pollution. And it's also, of course, very important to tackle these issues with more cooperation, not at least between UK and EU. So I really urge you all, my colleagues from the UK, to do whatever you can to make UK re-entry as a partner to the European Environment Agency. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Luke Flanagan.
Just to take up the speaker's point on being left behind, I don't think we should be left behind, but I think it's a very dangerous thing in life to do something out of a fear that you'd be left behind. I think it should be done on the basis that it's to the benefit of humanity, and it depends what you do with it. A bit like dynamite. It wasn't invented to blow people up. It was invented for something positive, but it's how humanity uses it. And out of a fear of being left behind, I'm 53, getting to that stage where I'm going, I wonder, am I left behind? I decided when the new Common Agricultural Policy proposals came out that I'd put it into AI and see what they thought about it. And what it told me was that actually, if I believed it, the cap from 2 cycles ago was actually part of the new cap. A lot of what was in the last cap is in the new cap, and a lot of what was proposed wasn't in it. And I thought to myself, well, it's a good job I know quite a lot about this. This is all I do. But a lot of people wouldn't know that, and they'd have looked it up. And we had some interesting news today, and it wasn't part of my cultural immersion. I listened to the BBC anyways. And this morning they were talking about AI, and they were talking about, well, it was actually the CEO of Meta said, we shouldn't blindly trust it. But at the same time, nothing is changing. If I put in that for CAP at the moment, it'll still tell me the same thing. And we had an interesting comment from Gina Neff, professor responsible for AI at Queen Mary University. She said about Meta, the company now is asking to mark their own exam paper while they're burning down the school. Now, we have a situation now where these companies can put out any information they want. I mean, if a newspaper put out a pack of lies, they'd have to be accountable for it. But at the moment, if you look up the new cap under AI, it'll tell you a pack of, it doesn't mean to be lying, but they're a pack of lies. So I get the idea of the fear of being left behind, but the fear of being left behind could have left me with a lot of bad information, only I knew quite a lot about it already. So I think we need to be wary of it, but at the same time, number one, it's got to benefit humanity, and if it doesn't, forget about it.
Thank you. Now we have a representative for the Senate, Anna Blitzen. Please, you have the floor.
Diolch, Chair. AI is the topic of our time, the automation for our age, and bringing with it both opportunities and the need to balance opportunities and challenges. In Wales, we want to get a better understanding of what AI means for the workforce, and my Senedd Committee's work on AI has recently reported on the potential impacts on both individual businesses and workers. We have called for a greater analysis on which groups are most likely to be impacted by job displacement in order to best place the state and governments to mitigate against adverse effects. We do need to move beyond the hype and focus on hope, working together with workers front and centre of this. We've heard repeatedly we don't want to be left behind, but to make sure we leave no one behind, workers' rights should be at the heart of our discussions on AI in this Assembly, and a collective approach and commitment to ethical AI is not just essential to our economies, but to our democracies as well.
Thank you. And we had the intervention with Carl van Loeve, Chair of the Committee of the Regions.
Thank you, President. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to bring the perspective of local and regional authorities and of the European Committee of the Regions into this debate. This is my first time representing the committee here at the PPA as an observer in my role as chair of the CWA UK contact group. I sincerely hope that our voice will continue to be heard in your future discussions. We already see that AI can greatly strengthen public sector organizations. There are a lot of opportunities. It can enhance policy making by detecting social issues earlier, monitoring policy implementation in real time, and identifying trends that help us anticipate future needs. It can improve public services, offering more efficient, personalized, and even entirely new services, while building trust and participation among citizens. And it can optimize internal management, helping administration allocate resources better and improve security. For decision-making in particular, AI allows us to integrate data from different domains, to analyze daily processes such as energy use or mobility patterns, and to simulate future scenarios, tools that are invaluable for sustainable urban development. Now that the AI Act is in place, all local and regional authorities must identify the opportunities this rapidly evolving technology offers and prepare their administrations to use it responsibly and effectively. A key factor will be interoperability, our ability to share information, connect systems, and ensure that public administration can communicate with each other. In an era of automation and digitalization, this is essential not only for a functional digital single market, but also for protecting public institutions from growing cybersecurity threats. Cooperation between regions, sharing good practices, and importantly, lessons from failures will be vital. This is why I would like to see our CUR UK contact group explore these themes together. Regions on both sides of the channel have strengths we can combine. Working together, we can ensure that AI becomes a driver of innovation, resilience, and better governance for all our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Now the session of question and intervention is over. I give back the floor to our guest, and I start with Mrs. Scioli. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I think I will start with the very first question on child safety, which is a very important question indeed, because you have all spoken about the risk of AI, of addiction, of disinformation, cyber threats, and all this. And to all this, effectively, we expose the children who are certainly don't have the knowledge or the media literacy or the understanding of the world that they will be facing. So there is already a memorandum of understanding that was written between the European Commission and Ofcom last year for working on child safety. And in the European Union, we are strongly also discussing the age verification issue. So at which age should then the minors have the possibility to go freely online? This is a very hot discussion in the European Union. But I wanted to point out the fact that with the AI Act and with the Digital Service Act in the European Union, we have legislation in place that looks at some of these issues. For example, with the AI Act, we have a prohibition for AI to subliminally manipulate vulnerable people. So this includes children. Therefore, there will be the possibility, for example, to say that maybe a chatbot should not be manipulating a child who doesn't understand what is happening. And then the Digital Service Act has a number of measures. For example, the platforms have to design their services to protect children from unwanted content, or they have to reduce excessive screen times. They have to reduce the time that the children are exposed to recommender systems. They have to pay attention to the time spent by the children online. So there is a number of safeguards that are already in our legislation. And I hope that discussing together, we can actually make this even more enforceable and collaboratively together. Now, you all spoke a lot about the risk of AI, and of course, this is the reason why we have the AI Act. And with the AI Act, we have tried to build smart rules in the sense of obligations that are more stringent, the stronger the risk is. So we have a risk-based approach. And we have tried to really target the kind of applications that we consider to be high risk or that we want to analyze from the point of view of safety, because we still want to see AI being used in the European Union, because AI, as many of you reminded, does have a lot of benefits if you think of healthcare and other applications. So we try to have a balanced approach with measures on innovation. We have introduced possibilities for regulatory sandboxes, and at the same time trying to really force companies to be responsible about the services they put in place in the European Union. And as it was said, remarked earlier, you're not far away geographically, so of course the companies in the UK who want to put these systems in use in the European Union, they will also have to respect these rules. On copyright, we have a copyright directive. I know this is a very important topic also for the UK, and we do use the copyright directive, which foresees the possibility for right holders to opt out from the scraping of the internet that is carried out by the AI developers, but we must strengthen the technological capability to implement the opt-out. And last, I would like to say, it was mentioned in the very last intervention, the importance of AI for the public sector. It is true, and many governments are already engaging with AI in the public sector. It's an opportunity to stimulate local developments here. It's very important to make sure that this innovation is implemented in a responsible manner, and that people in the public administration do really have the skills to put in place these systems. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Murray, you have the floor.
Very brief, but just to deal with some of the issues, I think Ms. Carberry raises the key one for all of us in terms of the issues around online safety, particularly for children. Our Online Safety Act has just been implemented, and there's things being added to that all the time. The new Secretary of State has added cyber flashing to that, strangulation, and suffocation, and a whole host of other issues. And there's two levels to that. There's the sort of primary levels of trying to stop things that are very harmful to children, like pornography, self-harm, suicide, those kinds of issues. But there's also those secondary content levels like hate content, bullying, and those kinds of things that are very prevalent in what we know of on online safety, particularly for children. And you asked a little bit about how we monitor and how we try and prevent that from happening. Ofcom is the Office for Communications, which is the regulator, the independent regulator from government. They have the ability to levy 10% fines of global revenues up to £18 million. There's criminal sanctions if these kinds of issues persist at the online platforms, and the infrastructure is being developed all the time about how we can try and resolve that through age verification and things. So it's not a panacea, there's no silver bullet here, but there is from all policymakers, a real drive to try and make sure that people, and particularly children, are safe online. And it goes to the issues, I think, that Lord Kirklopp mentioned in terms of how can we be equipped to deal with these issues, because we essentially are analogue policy makers in a digital world, and how do we deal with that? Because actually we've just in the last Parliament in the late 2000s developed legislation that would deal with the telephone when nobody uses the telephone anymore. So we have to be adept, and how can we be adept not only as individual nations but also across our relationships to make sure we can deal with these big issues that happen very quickly in terms of technological push. And it goes, I suppose, to the points that I think Baroness Nicholson challenges us all to say that maybe we're looking at this the wrong way. Our data has probably gone. Anyone who has a loyalty card for a major supermarket probably gives up more data than we would ever care to imagine. And perhaps what we need to do is to put the control of that data in the hands of the citizen to make sure they can be aware of what is being shared, what people know about you, and how you can then control that kind of data. And that takes policymakers a huge amount of time to produce, but I think that's probably the way we need to go in terms of controlling data. And Mr. Flanagan, if I merely just say that you fell into the trap that AI always falls into. AI is not a search engine and shouldn't be seen that way, but we should use it for search purposes. But actually, the key thing that you've highlighted is that AI, for all its complexities and all its opportunities, doesn't take away the human eye. And we heard from our final speaker around particularly the great advantages of in the world of medicine in terms of diagnosis, in terms of fast diagnosis that is accurate, but it doesn't take away the consultant's eye of seeing that that is actually the true reflection of what is being diagnosed. So we have to harness technology, and particularly AI, for the benefits of the purposes we want to use it for. And indeed, if AI can't understand the common agricultural policy, perhaps there's a problem with the policy rather than the rather than the technology. I say rather flippantly. But I suppose. But let me finish with this in terms of the other issues. And this is why this body is so important to look at some of these issues, because whether it be creative copyright, which we discussed in our previous session, whether it be online safety and children's safety, whether it be the regulatory environment that is able to be put in place to make sure that AI can flourish and technology can flourish, but also can be controlled and regulated in a way that helps the technology flourish, but citizens being protected, is stuff that we should be talking about regularly and stuff that we need to be talking about together, because not one country can resolve this on their own. And it's that interoperability. So I think we heard from Mr McNamara, who talked about whether or not the US-UK tech deal is about alignments with the EU policies, or whether it's about countries aligning together. And I think the key word is interoperability rather than alignment, to make sure that whatever we're doing as individual nations or member states, or indeed the UK and the EU and the wider global environment are all interoperable, so that there's no one able to use the regulatory backdoor to cause harm to our citizens wherever you are in the world. And that is a huge challenge, because we can't deal with this on an individual basis. So I think the contributions have been fantastic in raising those issues. I think it shows the challenges that we have, both as governments and as policy makers and parliamentarians, to try and resolve some of these issues. But I think it's an incredibly exciting way forward. And it's not just, as Baroness Nicholson challenges us, it's not just about how we traditionally regulate or legislate in the areas of new tech, but how we perhaps think about how we do things more generally to respond to these big issues, whether or not we're adept enough, whether or not we're quick enough, whether or not we're citizens enough focused to ensure that we're not just advancing the opportunities that these technologies have, but we're also making sure that there's key protections in place. And those thought processes for us all are incredibly challenging and something we should cherish and we should adopt.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This concludes this very interesting debate, concludes today, because I got the feeling that we will continue to discuss about these important issues. Now, I will hand over to Masha for the next point on the agenda.
Brilliant. And can I just add my thanks to everyone? I thought that was a really engaging and quite constructive exchange of views there. So the next item, you'll be pleased to know, is any other business. So does anyone have any other business? Okay. Thank you. You're welcome. Okay. Well, you are very welcome. Thank you. So if there isn't anything, I just want to say a few words before I hand back to Sandro for closing and remarks. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank Lord Ricketts, who will be stepping down from the PPA from January, when his tenure as chair of the Lords European Affairs Committee will come to an end. Now, Lord Ricketts has been a delegate of the PPA since its inception and a vice chair since June 2023. His knowledge, experience and diplomacy has been an invaluable asset to the PPA, and can I add also to myself as well. I know Lord Ricketts will continue to follow the UK-EU relations closely, and he would be happy to meet with any colleagues that are visiting from the European Parliament anytime soon. So a huge thank you to Lord Ricketts. I would also like to just say a massive thank you to all of you. As delegates, as guests and also observers, I think it's been a really positive session together. I said earlier yesterday that I know that there are a few things that I know Sandra and myself want to discuss about how we can improve and enhance the PPA. So I'm really hoping that going forward we can do that. Now, just one final practical point. So for those delegates and colleagues who will be participating in the tour, it will leave from outside of this room at 1 p.m. So enjoy the tour for those that are going to be participating. A massive thank you again to all the staff and everybody that helps make this happen. It didn't just happen, so thank you. whom without this would not be possible. So massive thank you. I'm now going to hand over to Sandro. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marcia, and I also want to thank you all. I mean, your presence here for 2 days is the best sign that is worth it, that we must work together and we want to work together. I know other delegation, and I'm very proud to say that this delegation and this partnership had the highest attendance. And I think that this is certainly something of which we should all be proud. And as a co-chair, I'm very grateful to you all. It is very important, and we have to continue with, strengthening the parliamentary dimension of our partnership. So really, I count very much on you. I also, as Marcia said, we heard also your concern, for example, on the process of the final recommendation. We have read your mails. So we will try to improve a mechanism that we have inherited. So we are not doing something different from the past. We are doing what it has been done for 6 PPA. Now there are demand for more transparency and more understanding of the process, and we are very willing, as far as we can, to improve the process. So, I mean, also on this, we will come back to you after a discussion in the Bureau. So thank you very much. Let me just inform you, because it's a save the day, so I want you all at the next 7th Parliamentary Partnership meeting. So I give you already the date and the place, so you can well prepare your agenda. We will meet in Brussels on the 16th and the 17th of March 2026. And with this, I declare hereby closed the 6th Parliamentary Partnership Assembly. Thank you very much to you all.